My name is Scarlett. I'm 34 years old and currently living and working in Denver. I own a company that installs air conditioning systems. The job is tough and dirty, but it's something I've built with my own hands over the last 10 years. I don't wear suits. I don't work in a glass office. And I've never been ashamed of that until the day I got a message from my mother while checking the HVAC system in the attic of a large building. Scarlett, don't come to the engagement party. Claire doesn't want to introduce you as an air duct technician. I froze in that stuffy room, knees numb from kneeling for 3 hours straight, but it was that message that truly knocked the air out of me. Claire, my younger sister, the one whose entire MBA tuition I paid, whose rent I covered, whose laptop I bought when she claimed hers broke right before finals. And now, she was erasing me from one of the most important days of her life, out of embarrassment. I didn't call back. I sent one single message. Then don't expect me to pay for your wedding. Have you ever poured your heart into helping someone, only to be pushed aside because you didn't fit the image? Have you ever been excluded from a table just because of your background or your job? Leave a comment if that's happened to you. Hit like if you believe kindness should never be repaid with shame. And don't forget to follow the channel to hear the rest, because this is just the beginning. I didn't reply to any more messages. I stuffed my phone deep into my coat pocket, flashlight still in hand, the industrial beam cutting across the nearly completed ductwork. The air in the attic was freezing that winter afternoon, but my chest was burning not from the labor, but from the fury coiling in me like compressed air waiting to explode. I climbed down the iron ladder, peeled off my dusty gloves, and tossed them onto the passenger seat of my truck marked with the logo of my company. Scarlett HVAC Solutions, a name I came up with 11 years ago when all I had was a ladder, a beat-up tool set bought from a liquidation sale, and a rented shed in the back of a rusting warehouse. I've lived long enough to know success doesn't always come wrapped in cocktail dresses and glass awards behind showroom cabinets. To me, success looks like bills paid on time, employees getting their year-end bonuses, and clients calling again the following year just to say, "You're still the one I trust." For the past 11 years, I've never asked a single dollar from anyone. Not from my parents, not from relatives, not from any man. But Claire was a different story. She's my half-sister, same mother, different fathers. My mom remarried when I was 14. By the time Claire was born, I was already a junior in high school, studying while working part-time at a tiny AC repair shop down the street. I never envied Claire. If anything, something in me always wanted to protect her. Maybe because, when she was young, she was the only one in the family who didn't judge me. I remember when she was 6, running after me in the backyard, blonde hair flying, cookie in hand, chirping, "Scarlett fixed the washing machine. She's my superhero." I laughed so hard I nearly cried over something that innocent. But kids grow up. Claire slowly stepped into a different world. My mother always said, "Let Scarlett handle the manual work. You focus on school and build a better life." It sounded caring, but every word carved a line between us. I didn't blame Claire. I figured, if I'd been the youngest raised in a better-off household, maybe I would have dreamed of a different world too. And I wanted to be the one who helped her reach that. I paid her college tuition, then her MBA program. I rented her a small apartment near campus. I bought her a new laptop whenever she complained that Excel was crashing again. I even sent her extra cash during holidays so she could travel with friends and never feel like she was missing out. I did all of it without a word of complaint. I didn't need her thanks. I just wanted her life to be easier than mine. I figured if I could pave a smoother road for her, then all those years of climbing rooftops in the dead of winter would be worth it. And yet, because of a utility jumpsuit, because of calloused hands, because of the title HVAC technician, I was cut out of the engagement party the day I once imagined I'd proudly stand by her side as she entered a new chapter. I didn't know much about her fiancé, Zach, only that he worked in finance and came from what my mother called a well-established family. Claire once told me, "Zach loves me because I'm driven. We see life the same way." Me? I used to be in every one of Claire's childhood birthday photos, But now I'm not even presentable enough to attend the party she's hosting at a fancy restaurant downtown. That evening, back at my company office, I sat in my small workspace, built out of soundproof panels, clutching a cup of coffee gone cold since morning. Outside, my team was finishing up the last work orders before the holidays, the printer humming, laughter echoing from the hall. I had built this place from nothing. I slept in the back of my truck because I couldn't afford both rent and storage. I was turned away by clients because, what does a woman know about industrial ACs? But I didn't quit. And yet my own family, my own blood, found me so embarrassing they couldn't bear to let me sit at a dinner table with their future in-laws. She's an air duct installer, a single line that could change everything. Not because those words were wrong, but because of the way they were written with contempt, with total erasure of everything I'd quietly built behind the scenes. I opened my laptop, scanned through pending quotes, next month's, payroll, and finally, the bank noticed Claire's tuition payment for the next term, nearly $24,000, was scheduled to go out automatically. I disabled the autopay. I wasn't angry about the money. I was angry that I had let others treat my sacrifice as obligation, that I'd stayed silent for so long in exchange for being forgotten. That night, I drove past the restaurant where the engagement party was being held. Through the brightly lit windows, I saw Claire in a sea green dress, glowing as she laughed with a crowd of well-dressed guests. I paused, didn't go in, didn't call. Just watched for a moment, then turned onto a darker, quieter street. I don't need a party, I just want respect. And if I can't get that through kindness, then I will stop giving. Not because I'm bitter, but because it's time Claire and the rest of the family learn how to walk on their own. I've never been the favorite, and I've never expected to be. When my Mother Denise married Richard, everything in our house shifted in subtle ways. No shouting matches, no movie-style drama, just small steps that moved me farther from the center of the family. Back then, I was 14, juggling school and odd jobs to help my mom pay utilities. After the wedding, she seemed reborn, new curls in her hair, gentler voice, proper meals. And then Claire arrived, the perfect child for this shiny new life. I genuinely loved Claire. I had once been the kid no one checked on when I had a fever at night, so when she cried at 2 a.m, I made her bottles. When she took her first steps, I chased her through the yard, making sure she didn't fall into Mom's rose bushes. I wasn't jealous, I just wanted to be useful. But as she grew, so did the distance between us. Every holiday, I had to ask 3 times to learn where dinner was happening. My mom always had an excuse. You're always working. My cousin Emma's wedding was at a luxury hotel in Boulder. Everyone in the family was there. Everyone but me. I called, and Mom said, I thought you were busy with that job. I texted you. I checked my phone for hours. There was no text. I began to feel like an outsider, not because they hated me, but because I didn't match the image they wanted to present. Mom always said sweet things, but somehow they stopped feeling warm. Things like, you're doing great, Scarlett, but don't push yourself too hard, you're a woman. Remember to take care of your health. Or, your sister has to work twice as hard to shine, especially since her big sister does manual labor. I'd smile, then return to my workshop, stacking copper coils, cleaning compressors, continuing a job they thought only men were fit to do. Claire was pampered by my mother. Whenever Claire had midterms, Mom would come by with cooked meals and a box of groceries delivered to the dorm. Meanwhile, at 21, I had a fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit in a moldy-walled boarding room, had to take the bus to the clinic, and come back with an old bag of antibiotics. Mom isn't a bad person. I never thought that. She just chooses whom to show affection to. She likes things that are beautiful, tidy, and fit into a frame. Me, with chipped nails, sun-darkened skin, and a work jacket dusted with job site grime, never fit. I remember one afternoon about 5 years ago when Mom called me to come over for dinner. When I arrived, Claire was there with a group of friends from college. They were eating tarts, drinking white wine, laughing loudly. I walked in, still wearing my work clothes, my boots caked with mud from a site inspection in the suburbs. Mom looked me up and down, then smiled faintly. Scarlett, you made it? Um, Maybe you should go change into something else. You look a little tired. I said nothing and went back to the truck, sitting there until the whole gathering broke up, then drove straight home. From that day on, I learned not to show up unannounced. I would only appear when invited, and always ask beforehand what to wear, what the menu would be, and whether I should bring something. I became the most prepared guest. For a party that might not actually want me there, Claire never said anything directly, but her actions spoke loud enough. On the day she graduated from college, I was 10 minutes late because of traffic on Interstate 25. I sat in the back row and watched Mom take a family photo with Claire, Richard, and the two aunts on my mother's side, without me. When I walked up, Claire forced a smile. "Oh, you made it? I thought you were stuck on a job. Let me take another shot with you." That shot never made it online. Each time I was cropped out of the frame, I stepped back a little more. One day, I stopped asking to be included. I told myself that as long as I kept sending tuition on time and supporting Claire when she needed it, my absence didn't matter. I comforted myself that not everyone needs recognition, that I didn't have to appear in photos. Claire's success would be enough. Then, with a single text, everything I had worked to protect became ridiculous. Claire didn't just want me to be absent. She wanted to erase me from her life's picture. Not because I caused trouble, but because I wasn't pretty enough to show off. I remember sitting quietly for hours at my work desk. The air purifier hummed in the corner. On the desk lay the next term tuition bill, nearly $24,000. I had just wired that deposit a week before. I picked up my phone, my thumb scrolling to Claire in my contacts. I had saved her as Sister Claire years ago. I changed it simply to Claire. And I knew that once I disconnected, none of them would stay quiet for long. But I wasn't going to sit still. When people are used to you stepping back, there's only one way to make them notice. Step out of the frame they're trying to draw for you. Not to get revenge, but to reclaim your own presence. That day was a Thursday. I remember because I had gotten up at 5 a.m. to drive to the new restaurant development over by Centennial. A massive project with a 4-story HVAC system and the most complex design my company had ever taken on. The project was Scarlett HVAC's chance to break into the ranks of major contractors in the region. I had mobilized the whole tech crew, scheduled checks for every point over 3 consecutive days. The day was bitterly cold, but inside me was a strange warmth, the quiet pride of reaching a milestone that didn't need applause. I stood on the roof, my head wrapped against the wind, boots on, holding a pressure gauge, threading it through gaps in ductwork that ran like a maze. When my phone buzzed in my pocket, I hadn't planned to read it, but while waiting for a unit to cycle, I pulled it out and unlocked the screen. It was a message from my mother. "Scarlett, don't come to the engagement party this weekend. Claire wants everything to be very formal. You in your work gear. It won't fit the atmosphere." I stood frozen in the 12 degrees Fahrenheit cold, wind stinging my face. Another message appeared less than a minute later. "She doesn't want to have to explain to Zach's family. This is an important occasion. You understand, right?" I did understand. I understood that the tuition bills I'd quietly paid from the first semester through last summer were never going to turn me into the person they wanted to present. I understood that the long hours I worked through scorching September heat and freezing February, the holiday shifts I took so others could have time off, still wouldn't buy me a seat at the table. Claire called a rite of passage. I set the gauge down, stepped out of the mechanical alcove, pulled off my gloves, and sat down on the cold concrete slab. My hands trembled, and it wasn't from the wind. You understand, right? That question haunted me all the way back to the office. Every road I drove replayed scenes. Standing in line at the bookstore to buy Claire's textbooks, waiting 3 hours outside the bank to handle paperwork to co-sign a loan for her, setting a new MacBook on Claire's table for her 24th birthday when her old machine crashed in the middle of finals. I never asked for thanks. I just assumed I was her sister. At that moment, I had no plan, I didn't think about cutting off tuition or about confrontation. I only felt a cold, hollow space open inside my chest, like being kicked out of the very house I'd helped build. Back at the office, the warm yellow lights in the reception were still on. Melissa, my lead tech, was finishing her last cup of coffee before clocking out. She looked up when I walked in, concern in her eyes. "You okay?" They called from Centennial, praising level 3's, system finishing ahead of schedule. I nodded, gave a thin smile. "Yeah, good." I went into my office and shut the door. On the desk sat the tuition envelope from the state business school, the one I'd scheduled a transfer for at the start of the month. I opened my laptop and stared at the figure $30,820 for the recent school year. Each transfer had been accompanied by the thought, if she succeeds, I don't need anyone's recognition. At that moment, I wasn't so sure. I opened the banking app, my fingers scrolling through recurring payments. Claire's name sat at the top, the familiar link between me and a family I'd tried to hold together by giving without limits. I turned off autopay. Then I opened my contacts, scrolled to the bottom where all the old messages between Mom and me were stored. Each one carried the same tone. "Claire's under pressure. Scarlett, lend her a hand." Or, "Big sister, please don't let Claire worry about finances." I tapped the message field and typed, "Okay, Claire doesn't need any more explanations, and don't count on me to cover the wedding." I didn't hit send. I deleted everything and set the phone down, wondering why I still felt the urge to type something kind. Maybe because somewhere in Mom I still hoped there was a place for me. That night I drove around downtown for almost an hour. I stopped by the bakery Claire used to like, the coffee shop where I used to wait for her after college classes, then pulled up in front of the building where Claire and Zach lived. The fifth-floor window was lit, their silhouettes pressed against the glass like an expensive photograph. I didn't go up. I just sat in the car, watched, and thought to myself, maybe I was wrong to believe I belonged there. Back home, I boiled water, made a cup of tea, sat on a wooden chair by the window, and wrote a new list by hand. Cancel all tuition payments for Claire. Cancel the planned wedding sponsorships. Contact a lawyer too. Check how Claire used my name for any credit accounts. Redirect investments to expand the company and open a branch next spring. I put the pen down, took a deep breath, and felt something shift. Not because I wanted revenge, because I couldn't keep living a life where people called only when they needed me to pay, then quietly cut me out of the picture once everything looked pretty. Maybe I wasn't invited to the engagement party, but at least I felt like I was coming back to myself. And I knew this wasn't the end of things. I couldn't sleep that night. The small apartment was as quiet as always, the clock ticking in the kitchen. Streetlight spilled across the window pane, making the room feel hazy and foreign like it didn't belong to me. I sat at the desk, opened the old laptop, and my fingers wandered through folders. Something was unsettled in my chest, a slow-burning feeling like a wound that didn't bleed. At first, I just meant to double-check Claire's tuition schedule, in case the school had sent another confirmation. But when I logged into the old email account, the one I used to receive academic notices on Claire's behalf in her early college years, things began to unravel. The inbox was full of messages from scholarship organizations. Some dated more than 2 years back, some from recent months. A few had subject lines like, "Congratulations, you have been awarded special needs scholarship," or "Verification for financial assistance, single-parent household." I frowned. Single-parent household? I clicked each message, reading every line. Many of the applications Claire submitted used my home address. Some declarations even stated, "Living with sister, manual laborer, low income, no assets in own name." I went numb. I had never known Claire was using my name to claim that kind of family situation. Never asked. Never obtained permission. She had turned me into a pity backdrop to sweeten a sympathetic resume. I'm not wealthy, but I'm not poor, and I've never wanted anyone's pity. I own my own company, have a team of employees, a house I bought with my own hands, a car, and full insurance. And now, because of those falsified statements, in the eyes of assistance organizations, I was labeled an unstable worker with no clear financial capacity. I opened my personal bank account next. In the linked accounts report, there was a sub-account registered under my name used to verify with a tuition lender. The beneficiary name showed faintly, Claire D. Whitmore beneficiary. My hands shook as I opened the transaction details. There was a loan approved about 18 months ago, nothing huge, but large enough that I would have had to sign if asked, and I had never done that. I sank deeper into the chair, my hand supporting my forehead. My head felt like a rope pulled to its limit. Old images rushed back like a film played in reverse. Claire handing me papers to sign while I had my hands. In the sensor installation at the company office. "Can you sign this for me, sis? It's just a housing verification to get travel assistance, nothing big." I hadn't read it carefully. I trusted her. I'm her sister. Now, looking back, the times Claire casually asked to borrow my address, to confirm my birth date, to fill out internal forms, were no longer innocent. She had exploited my trust, warped it, and made me part of a personal financial strategy I never knew existed. My phone buzzed an alert from the bank about a credit account under my name being flagged for inconsistent information. I pulled up the credit report. A link showed an application for an authorized user card using my name registered at a bank branch near Claire's dorm. I had never been there. I clenched my teeth not from anger, but because of the ache in my chest. I had given Claire everything I could, unconditionally, without limits. In return, she not only cut me out of her life, she used me as a financial tool. As a name to enter on loan applications. I stood and paced the room. My hand brushed a framed photo on the shelf. An old snapshot of Claire and me when she was in 8th grade. 2 sisters eating ice cream on a summer curb. Her hair a mess and me in a stained work jacket. Back then, she still held my hand in public. I put the frame face down. The next morning, I met my lawyer, Andy, a man in his 50s who had been with me since I started the company. When I laid out everything I had found, Andy was silent for a long time, then exhaled slowly. "Scarlett, if you want, we can file a complaint for financial forgery and identity exploitation. What Claire did is not trivial." I looked at him, overwhelmed. "I don't know if I have the stomach to do that to my sister." Andy nodded, his eyes softening. "But you have enough self-respect not to be used as a tool." I didn't answer. I only nodded, and I knew this had gone beyond the boundaries of a family dispute. It was no longer only about hurt. It was about trust torn to pieces with no one bothering to apologize. I left Andy's office with a face so cold no one dared strike up a conversation on the way out. Winter sunlight glinted off the car windows but gave no warmth. I gripped the steering wheel as if to steady myself, my head full of numbers, documents, and questions no one in my family had ever answered. Back home, I made a strong cup of coffee, set the laptop on the kitchen table, and began to act. No hesitation, no wavering. I logged into my personal bank account first. Under beneficiary, Claire's name appeared with 5 lines of recurring payments: tuition, rent, health insurance, and a sub-account for monthly spending. I had set these up so she wouldn't have to worry while studying. I hit cancel. The system popped up a confirmation box. I entered my password, my fingerprint, and hit send. "You have just canceled the automatic payment link to the account. Claire D. Whitmore. This action cannot be undone." I didn't need it to be undone. Next, I opened the tuition payment portal at the university Claire attended. The website looked so familiar it felt almost numbing. I had logged in there dozens of times at the start of each semester, every bill deadline. I once knew her password better than the company's safe code. Everything remained the same spring semester. An outstanding balance of more than $21,000, and only 13 days left before the payment deadline. I clicked on the payer field. The system displayed, Scarlett M. Callahan, primary tuition sponsor. I hovered over the Remove Sponsor button. A warning dialog popped up. This action may affect the student's ability to maintain enrollment. I hit confirm. And then my name was gone. Claire would now have to take care of herself. Finally, I drafted an email plain, not flowery, not spiteful, to Claire D. Whitmore CC, Mom, Denise Whitmore. Subject: regarding financial sponsorships. Claire, I am writing to confirm that as of today, I will no longer be responsible for any expenses related to your education, living costs, or wedding plans. I have canceled all automatic payments, closed the sub-accounts, and contacted the bank to report financial identity fraud carried out under my name. I have also filed a report with the Student Affairs Office regarding false documents related to scholarship applications. I am not doing this out of anger. I am doing this because I have realized that trust cannot be given unconditionally forever. I will not pay 1 cent more. Live with the choices you made. Scarlett, I hit send. I did not read it once. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Mom. I didn't pick up. 10 minutes after that, Claire called. I didn't pick up either. Messages poured in first from Mom. Scarlett, what is going on? What do you mean by this? Then from Claire, you're joking, right? Don't make this a big deal, we can talk. I set the phone aside and opened the window. Wind came in carrying the scent of melting snow from the stoop. I stood there for a few minutes, strangely light. Only when the phone rang for the 5th time did I answer. Scarlett, my mother's voice was sharp as a cutting blade. What are you doing? Claire just called me. She's hysterical. She says the school warned her she could be suspended if tuition isn't paid on time. I kept my tone calm. I sent a clear email. But you can't suddenly cut everything off like this. She's midterm. She won't be able to manage. I gripped the phone. Mom, I have been supporting her whole life while no one stood with me. She can manage if she wants to. You're being unreasonable. Claire is still a child. She doesn't understand the consequences of what she's done. She's 24 years old, Mom. She knew when she falsified documents. She knew when she used my name without permission. She knew when she told you that I shouldn't come to the engagement party because I wear work gear. There was silence for a few seconds on the other end. Mom sighed. Her voice softened. Scarlett, sisters should support each other. Family is family. Family is not a place where you are exploited and must stay silent. You are tearing everything apart. No. I am simply stopping carrying what is not mine. I hung up. Half an hour later, Claire's reply email appeared on my screen. Long, full of exclamation points and phrases in all caps like, I didn't mean it, I just needed help. You're being cruel. I didn't answer. That night I checked the university account one last time. In the financial information section, my name had completely disappeared. All responsibility now belonged to Claire. There was no turning back. I poured another cup of coffee and leaned back in the chair. Not everyone will understand that I did this out of love. But perhaps true love is when you force someone to grow up, even if they resent you for it for the rest of their life. It took only 36 hours after I sent that final email for the whole family to wake up from their long sleep, only to join together in a loud, public condemnation as if I had burned down the family chapel. I was checking the air filtration system at a medical facility when the first message arrived from Aunt Bonnie, my mom's cousin, someone I hadn't seen since 12th grade. The message had no greeting, no punctuation, just one line. Scarlett, what kind of person are you? Don't you know what family means? Then a message from Aunt Sharon. I can't believe you would treat Claire like this. She has always loved you, admired you. Do you know how much she is hurting? I didn't reply. I was still in an elevator shaft at the site, holding the pressure controller, watching the readings. But my heart, I started to pound in an unfamiliar way. That afternoon, back at the office, I opened my phone. 16 missed calls, 7 voicemails, 2 emails with subjects in all caps. Urgent talk about Claire. I sighed and set the phone down, about to make coffee, when Melissa, my lead tech, came in holding her phone. Boss, I think you should see this. Her voice was hesitant. I took the screen. Social media. Claire's new post. A photo taken from behind showing a single figure sitting alone in a library with the caption, Family isn't always love. Some blood relatives abandon you when you need them most. I drew a deep breath. Less than an hour after that post, the comments were full of sympathy and support. Stay strong. I went through the same thing. People help only to control. Family isn't always the good people. Be strong. Fake relatives are scarier than strangers. Her sister doesn't deserve her. And then I saw Aunt Sharon's comment. Below, my daughter cried all night. She raised that girl and now she's tearing apart her future. I stood motionless for a few minutes. No pain, no anger, just an emptiness that drained me. Claire didn't name me explicitly, but everyone knew, because in this family, everyone knows I handled her tuition, and now they needed a villain to rally around. I didn't blame them, not anymore, because I've seen one thing clearly. If you spend your life pleasing others, there will always be someone ready to call you a traitor the moment you stop obeying. That evening, Mom called. I sat on the sofa and watched the screen ring. Finally, I answered. Scarlett, she said, voice tired, stretched like a wire pulled too tight. I don't even know where to begin. You did this without telling me, and now everyone is talking, relatives are calling nonstop. I can't take any more of this. I leaned back in the chair and looked out the window. The streetlight cast a yellow glow on the freshly fallen snow. Mom. You can't take it because this is the first time I refuse to pay for something that isn't my responsibility. That's not it. Mom almost cried. You're her sister. You can't just be indifferent like that. I'm not indifferent. I quietly paid her tuition, rented her an apartment, bought her insurance for 5 years. I didn't say anything because I thought she deserved a chance. But she didn't just erase me from her life, Mom. She used my name to borrow money, falsified documents, and now she's making me the villain. There was a pause on the other end. Then Mom asked, her voice softer. Claire says she didn't mean it. She's just under a lot of pressure. No one accidentally fills out fake information on 5 different forms, Mom, I said quietly. I'm not strong enough to cover for that anymore. If she wants to grow up, this is a good chance. Mom was silent. Then, sounding like someone who had run out of arguments but still clung to habit, she said, I just don't want everything to fall apart like this. Family is supposed to be a support. Then why didn't anyone ask if I was okay when I was excluded from the engagement party? I asked, unnaturally calm. Why didn't anyone ask if I was exhausted when I stayed up late handling loan paperwork? Or is family only a support when they need you to pay, and just a shadow when you don't fit the image? Mom exhaled heavily. You're being too harsh. No, I'm just for the first time being true to myself. I hung up. That night I didn't open social media. I put my phone on silent and didn't respond to any messages. I sat in the small shop behind the house where I started the company in my early 20s, among old equipment and the blueprint of the first HVAC system I ever designed. I stared at that drawing and thought, if people can build a high-rise on empty land with the right design, I can rebuild my life too, without their approval, without applause. At least now, I don't have to bow my head for recognition. Zach is the kind of man who looks respectable at first glance. Polite, composed, competent, always measured. Claire used to boast to Mom, Zach will put my life on track. And my mother nodded, pleased, as if one man like that in the family could erase any other flaws. Zach hadn't met me much. Whenever I showed up at Mom's house, Claire found an excuse to be out, or said, Zach has a meeting. I didn't mind. I assumed they were in that early stage of building a relationship, and I, the HVAC sister, with my hastily tied hair and grease on my hands, wasn't needed in conversations about real estate investment or finance startups. I never tried to intrude. Until I got a message from a contact in the alumni group with a screenshot. Zach just got a very strange email from an anonymous sender. It's about Claire's tuition. Is this for real? I frowned, my heart suddenly slowing. A day later, while I was meeting the tech team about a new maintenance package, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but I swiped the screen. Hello, Scarlett Callahan? Yes, this is she. I'm Zach Kavanaugh. I paused for a moment. His voice was polite but carried a tension, like a string pulled too tight. I don't want to bother you, Zach continued, but there are some things I think we should discuss privately, between the two of us. I nodded, though he could not see me. I'm free this afternoon. My office is in the South Broadway area. You can come by. Zach arrived on time, neatly dressed, hair combed, but his expression was different, no social smile. Instead, it was direct, sharp, unafraid to confront. I poured coffee and invited him into the small conference room. No one spoke for a few minutes. Finally, Zach opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. I received this from an anonymous address. The sender included copies of the financial statements for Claire's undergraduate and MBA tuition. I looked at the statements on the screen. My name, my bank account, the school's confirmations. Not a single payment listed in Claire's name, and no support from my parents as Claire had told him. Zach stopped the playback. Is it true you paid all of Claire's tuition all this time? I nodded. Since her first year. Rent, insurance, living expenses. I did it so she could focus on school. He stared at me for a long time. Not angry, not suspicious, just disappointed. But that disappointment wasn't directed at me. I asked Claire about this before. She said the family handled it, that her parents had set money aside. That you helped a little in the beginning and stopped, Zach said, leaning back with his hand on his forehead. I don't know what to think anymore. I said nothing. There was no need to recount or to claim credit. I had no intention of putting Claire on trial. Why were you silent all those years? Zach asked. I looked him straight in the eye. Because I thought that if she could become the person she wanted, I could be the background. I never needed recognition. But I never expected. She would erase my existence as something shameful. Zach fell silent. And now? He asked. I stopped paying, stopped sponsoring. I'm not listed on any loans anymore. She'll have to live with what she chose. Zach nodded slowly. I need to verify this, to know who I'm marrying. I stood and reached out my hand. I don't want to intrude on your relationship, but thank you for coming straight and asking. He shook my hand. I don't think someone can live on lies forever. When he left the office, I watched him go. A strange, familiar feeling crept into my chest as if someone had finally seen me clearly, without prejudice or distance. Not to praise me, just to acknowledge me. That afternoon, I got a message from Claire. Zach just came to my place. He knows everything. What did you tell him? I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, another message arrived. You can't do this. You can't ruin my life. I sat still as the sunset drained across the rooflines opposite, and I knew Claire's life wasn't ruined by me. I was simply no longer protecting her. And then, things fell into place on their own. Later that day, returning to the office after a site survey, I saw the inbox icon flashing with a new message. I opened my computer, not expecting much, maybe a supplier, quote, or a field report from the Englewood tech crew, but not. The email subject read, Payment confirmation, the Glenwood estate. I frowned. The Glenwood is an upscale event venue on a hill west of Denver. My mother had mentioned it proudly at a dinner once. Claire says her wedding will be a dream. You have to see it just by looking. You can tell she's from a respectable family. I clicked into the message. The letter from Glenwood's management, polite and detailed, stated that the venue deposit of $15,800 had not been paid on time. The booking name was Claire D. Whitmore, but the financial guarantor field listed Scarlett M. Callahan. They requested I confirm the transfer within 48 hours, or they would cancel the reservation. I wasn't surprised. Just a chill of familiarity ran down my spine. I thought I had cleared the related accounts. I thought that after everything, Claire would stop using my name as an unlimited bank card. I hit reply and typed one line. Don't use my name anymore. Good luck to Claire. I hit send, then sat still for a moment. It wasn't anger. It was a sadness mixed with relief, like closing the last door that should have been shut long ago. Not long after, my phone rang. It was Zach. I hesitated a moment, then answered. Scarlett, his voice was low and clear. I know this isn't something you want to be involved with anymore, but I I need to say this. I said nothing, waiting for him to continue. I called off the wedding, he said bluntly. I can't go on with someone whose whole story has gaps. I feel like I nearly married a person who wasn't real. I closed my eyes for a few seconds, not out of joy, but out of regret. Not regret for Claire, but for the years she spent chasing a version of herself she didn't dare live. I don't intend to expose Claire, I said softly. I just stopped being used. I understand, and I respect you for that. Zach paused, then spoke more slowly. Thank you. For not staying silent like everyone else. Thank you for helping me see clearly. I didn't know what to say. I only said one sentence, softly, almost to myself. I suppose everyone eventually has to face the truth they built. Zach sighed. I left Claire's apartment this morning, she cried, and begged for more time, saying you'll come back to help, that it's just a fight. I let out a small laugh, no longer angry, only tired. No one sulks by sending financial statements to a law firm. Zach gave a short, light laugh, but in it was acceptance. Maybe even letting go. I'm sorry I ever believed what Claire told me about you. You don't need to defend me, I replied, my voice low. Just, if anyone asks later, tell the truth. I will, he said. You're the only one who stayed whole while everything around got twisted. I thanked him and hung up. No plans to meet again, no extra well wishes. Just a civil conversation between two people who finally realized some truths didn't need protecting because they were clear on their own. That evening, I received another message from an unknown number, which I guessed was Claire. It was short, no punctuation, no apology. You ruined my wedding. You can't imagine what you've taken from me. I looked at the line for a moment. Then I set the phone aside, turned on some soft music in the living room, and sat on the couch watching the snow begin to fall outside the window. And I thought, yes, maybe I can't imagine what Claire lost. But I knew exactly what I had regained. Freedom from a life bound by roles written by others. That morning started like any other. I arrived at the company at 7:15 a.m., made coffee, checked the equipment monitoring system, and scheduled maintenance for 3 major clients in Aurora and Littleton. Melissa was handling a renewal contract with a new hospital, and the tech crew were splitting up routes to inspect industrial compressors. The work rhythm filled the place, the sounds weaving a familiar soundtrack for a life that had found its footing. I didn't think Claire would come all the way here. The glass doors in the front lobby slammed against the wall. Everyone in the office turned almost at once. A few people stood from their desks. Claire walked in, her face pale, eyes bloodshot as if she'd cried all night. Her hair was a mess, makeup streaked, and the red dress that had once been elegant now looked crumpled like a scarf tossed in a storm. "Scarlett," Claire shouted, her voice tearing through the quiet. "You ruined my life. Don't you know that?" No one moved. No one spoke. Just a few shocked looks from younger employees and a thick silence in a space accustomed to the sounds of tools. I rose from my chair and walked slowly out of my office. Not hurried, not afraid. Just that familiar ache. I was the one who always ended up handling the chaos, coming from the person I had protected. "Claire," I said softly but firmly. "What are you doing?" She strode straight toward me, her anger making her voice shake. "You made Zach leave me. You turned the whole family against me. You left me with no way back." I stood my ground. "You think who you are? That because you're my sister, you can destroy everything? I was about to have the perfect life, you know?" I looked around. Melissa moved closer, ready to intervene, but I gestured for her not to. One of my veteran engineers, Mr. Douglas, in his 60s, who'd come back part-time after retirement because he loved the work, stepped forward slowly, his face both sad and stern. "Young lady," he said in a steady, grandfatherly tone, "nobody ruined you. You did this to yourself." Claire turned on him, eyes wide. "Who are you to say that? I'm someone who watched your sister work from 7 a.m. until late every single day. Someone who saw her climb up on roofs in winter to fix ductwork. Someone who watched her split her year-end bonus with staff even though she had no one to share the holidays with. Claire opened her mouth to retort, but no words came out. I took a step forward to stand opposite my sister. My sister is screaming about family, I said, but when I needed a seat at the engagement table, where were you? When you put my name on fraudulent financial forms, you didn't think it was wrong. But when I stopped paying, suddenly you think I'm destroying your life. Claire staggered. I did it because I was afraid I had nothing. I needed to make a good impression. I didn't think you'd cut everything off. Didn't think? I frowned. Didn't think is your reason for signing my name on loan applications? Didn't think is why you put my name down as guarantor for a wedding you never invited me to? I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she whispered, almost breaking. I just wanted to be acknowledged. I didn't want people to know I'd been living off you. But you wanted my money. You wanted my guarantee. You wanted my name without wanting my presence. You're not ashamed that I'm a technician. You're ashamed that I don't fit the image you built. Claire bowed her head. A tear fell onto the concrete floor. I'm sorry, she murmured, but now I really have nothing left. I looked at my sister and didn't see the shining girl Mom used to brag about to her friends. I saw a young woman standing in a place she had never stepped into, the place where every mask had finally slipped off. Claire, there are things I wanted to forgive, I said slowly. But forgiveness doesn't mean continuing to nurture lies. You can start over. But not with my money, not under my name, not by putting others down to climb up. A younger employee stepped forward and gently asked Claire to leave the work area. I nodded at him, signaling there was no need for force. Claire took a step back, eyes still red, but she did not resist. Before she turned away, she said without looking at me, I used to be proud of you. I just didn't know how to show it. I did not reply. Because pride means nothing if someone chooses to erase you from their life. Claire walked out. The door closed behind her, leaving a heavy silence. I turned back to the conference room and looked at the faces in my company, people who had watched me build this place with early mornings and frozen winters. I didn't need to say anything. They understood, and for me, that was worth more than any speech. The month passed in a silence I once thought would break me, but it turned out silence could be a gift. No more calls from Mom. No messages from aunts. No cryptic emails from relatives who had angrily defended Claire. Everything quieted, like a lake after a storm, only a few ripples at the edges. And in that quiet, I heard myself more clearly than ever. I started sleeping better. Each morning I woke without the feeling that someone was about to demand another piece of me. I didn't have to calculate another unnamed expense, or stop work to handle family matters. I could set my phone down without fearing a scolding text at lunchtime. I poured my energy into the company. At the end of the month, I finalized the paperwork to open the second branch in Colorado Springs, a project I'd postponed nearly 2 years because there was always something more important at home. I didn't ask anyone's permission. I signed the lease, approved the new floor plan, and chose the lead tech for the branch exactly like a leader should. I still thought of Claire. I won't deny that. On nights I passed the bakery she used to love, I'd glance at the window. On cold mornings making coffee, I'd absent-mindedly remember the time she called me at midnight because she'd had a fight with a roommate and wanted to hear my voice. But I didn't expect her to come back. I'd learned that some people enter your life as lessons, not as companions. On Christmas morning, when snow covered the steps and the house was so quiet I could hear the golden retriever rustle by the fireplace, my phone buzzed once, the only ring of the day. It was Mom. The message was a single line. Claire, thought it over. You should forgive. Be the adult here. I set the phone down and didn't read it again. Not angry, not disappointed, just familiar. I got up, fed Milo, and put on the classic Christmas music Dad used to love. The smell of cinnamon pancakes filled the kitchen. The Christmas tree I had put up 3 weeks earlier stood quietly in the corner, its lights blinking warmly. I hugged Milo, sat in the armchair by the big window facing the backyard. The outdoor tree had a few simple ornaments. I'd hung the only decorations I'd kept from the old house when Mom told me to move out at 20. I reached for a mug of hot cocoa, took a sip, and opened my inbox. The first email was from the State Commerce Office. The subject read, "Congratulations. Your application to open the Scarlet HVAC Colorado Springs branch has been approved." I stared at those words for a long time. A different kind of feeling washed over me, not a burst of joy, but a deep, calm contentment. It felt like someone had wrapped me in a warm blanket in a peaceful room. I opened the attached document and read every clause, every timeline, every stamped permit. And at the bottom of the page, in the field labeled Proposed Executive Board, a line for naming the principal operators or shareholders. I filled in one name, Scarlett M. Callahan. I closed the file, rested my hand on the armrest, eyes still on the snow outside. I used to want to sit at their table, dress up, bring desserts, wait for that invitation to a wedding, thinking that if I was good enough, family would come back around. But today, sipping cocoa with the dog at my feet, I realized something painfully simple. I don't need their table anymore, because I built my own. Solid. Room for others. And this time, I get to decide who sits with me. Have you ever been in a situation like mine, spending your life hoping for recognition from blood relatives, only to get silence, disdain, or exploitation in return? Have you ever given all your love and sacrifice to family, and then realized one day that you were never truly considered part of the family? I don't ask to accuse. I ask because I believe there are many like me, quietly sitting somewhere in the cold night, wondering, am I wrong to stop enduring? Family, supposed to be the safest place, can sometimes be where you learn to let go to save yourself. And I think, if you must choose between knocking on the door of a house that won't open or building a warm place of your own, maybe it's time to pick up the hammer. I'm not telling my story to blame anyone. I'm sharing it to say to anyone listening, you don't need permission to be yourself. And if you've ever been pushed out of a table, remember you can build another table strong, respectable, and with no place for pretense. What do you think of my story? Have you experienced something similar? Leave your thoughts below. I read every single one, because I believe every honest story deserves to be heard. If you want to keep following my journey about family, freedom, and rebuilding from unseen cracks, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Thank you for listening.